Three fishermen. Same lake, same bait, same technique. One of them caught 31 bass in 4 hours. The other two? 9 fish in total. The difference wasn't luck. It wasn't experience. It was a 2 mm detail on the hook tip that nobody teaches you because it's against the interests of the hook industry, which makes billions selling you new tools every month. What I'm about to show you has been hidden for decades. If this is your first time here, subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any secrets the industry tries to hide. Let me tell you what happened at a lake in Tennessee last May. 3 friends organized a friendly competition. They all had the same equipment: a 7-foot rod, 12-pound line, and pumpkin green soft plastic worms. They arrived at the same time, 5:30 in the morning. The water still had that cold mist rising. The first guy, Mark, had been fishing for 20 years. He had participated in local tournaments and knew the lake like the back of his hand. The second, James, had about 15 years of experience. He always fished there and knew exactly where the bass were depending on the water temperature. The third, an older guy named Earl, had been fishing since he was a child with his grandfather in the muddy waters of the Mississippi. He was the quietest of the group, the kind of fisherman who talks little and catches a lot. The day started normally. In the first hour, everyone caught some fish. Mark had 3 bass, one weighing 2 pounds and 2 smaller ones. James had 2, both small. Earl had 8. The guys thought it was luck, a difference in spot. Maybe he'd found a better one. But then it got past 9 a.m. and the sun started to get hot. Mark continued fishing slowly. 2 more fish by noon. James caught 4 throughout the morning. Earl? 14 bass that morning alone. By the end of the day, he had 31 fish, while his friends combined didn't even reach 10. Same bait, same lake, same casting technique. The only difference was a detail Earl did to every hook before putting it in the tackle box. A 30-second adjustment that tripled the hook set rate. Mark and James thought he was lying, that it was just fisherman talk, until Earl showed them his hook compared to theirs. He grabbed a magnifying glass he had in his car. The difference was so small you could barely notice it with the naked eye. But the fish felt it when it bit. The point of Earl's hook had a different angle, more aggressive, sharper. It penetrated the bass's jaw on first contact, while the standard hooks of their friends slipped 2 or 3 times before setting. This detail on the hook is just one of the techniques the industry doesn't want you to know. I've compiled everything the industry hides from you in the book High-Level Fishing, The Water Game. There you'll find practical freshwater and saltwater fishing techniques, how to quickly identify productive zones, fish structure, and where the fish really are, never again waste time in dead spots, current, tide, and water flow, the invisible engine that controls fishing, positioning, and angle of attack. What decides more than the bait? Fish behavior patterns, how to predict where they will be, real-time decision-making, stop trying and start deciding. The mindset of a high-level fisherman. The difference between amateur and professional. All in one place, no fluff, straight to the point. The link is in the description. Now I'm going to show you exactly what Earl did. The secret is in the angle of the hook point. When you buy a new hook at the store, the point comes sharpened from the factory. You look at it, it seems perfect. Shining, pointed. The problem is that it comes at a standard angle that works, but doesn't optimize penetration. The point has too long a taper. It seems counterintuitive, but a very gradual point slides more easily into the fish's mouth before setting in. It's like comparing a hypodermic needle to a thin nail. Both are pointed, but one penetrates with much less resistance. Old fishermen in the southern United States discovered this more than 70 years ago. In the Louisiana bayou, guys who fished for catfish to sell at the market learned to modify each hook. They spent hours on the riverbank adjusting the points because they knew it meant more fish at the end of the day. More fish meant more money. In Mississippi, this technique was passed down from father to son as a family secret. You didn't teach it to just anyone. This was only for the kids when they turned 12 or 13 and started fishing seriously. In Florida, fishing guides who worked in the Everglades knew all about it but never told their clients. They modified their own hooks but let the clients use regular store hooks. The result? The guide always caught more fish than the client. The client thought it was because the guide had more experience, knew the lake better. No, it was the hook. They adjusted the angle of the point to create what they called a needle point. It wasn't about making it sharper. It was about changing the angle of penetration. The difference between a 70% hook set and a 95% hook set, between losing 3 out of every 10 fish and losing only 1 out of every 20. The science behind this is simple but powerful. When a fish bites, it doesn't swallow the hook in one movement. It tests it, it presses, it feels the texture. At that moment, micro-movements occur that you don't even notice while holding the rod. The base, for example, has a cartilaginous structure in its jaw that protects against spines from prey and sharp structures. It's a natural defense. When you set the hook needs to penetrate this layer in milliseconds. A standard point angle, which comes from the factory with about 12 to 15 degrees of taper, creates more initial resistance. The force you apply to the hook is distributed over a larger area. Some of the energy is lost, pushing the fish forward instead of driving the hook into the flesh. It's basic physics. Pressure is force divided by area. The smaller the contact area, the greater the pressure at the point of penetration. Now take a modified angle of 8 to 10 degrees, like a hypodermic needle. All the force of the hook is concentrated in a millimeter-sized point. The penetration is instantaneous. You can test this at home. Take a regular hook and try to stick it into a firm rubber band, like those large erasers, with moderate pressure. Then take a modified hook with a sharper angle. The difference in penetration is absurd. The modified hook goes in with half the force. And when you're fishing, this difference means that fish that only tested the bait and released it with a regular hook will now get hooked with a modified hook. The fish doesn't even realize it's been hooked until it's too late. Here's a step-by-step guide on how to make this adjustment. You'll need 3 things: a 400 grit nail file, a fine sharpening stone like an Arkansas stone or ceramic sharpening rod, and a magnifying glass or magnifying glasses. Total cost? Less than $15, and you'll use it for years. You can find the nail file at any drugstore, CVS, Walgreens, for $2 for a pack of 3. You can find the sharpening stone at fishing stores like Bass Pro Shops, or online at Amazon for $8 to $12. You can buy the magnifying glasses, the plus 2.5 or plus 3.0 reading glasses at any dollar store for $1. Now let's get to the process. Take the hook and hold it by the shank with needle nose pliers. Don't use your hand because you'll need stability. Look at the point under the magnification. You'll see that the taper is gradual, smooth. The point gradually tapers until it reaches the top. Now comes the secret. Earl learned from his grandfather. Work only one side of the point at a time. This creates an asymmetrical geometry that directs penetration. Run a nail file along the outside of the hook's curve, from top to bottom, with short, controlled movements. About 8 to 10 light strokes. Don't force it. You're creating a more aggressive bevel, removing microscopic material. Turn the hook 180 degrees and do the same on the other side, but with 5 to 6 strokes. Fewer than the first side. This creates a subtle asymmetry that makes the point want to penetrate instead of slipping. If you make both sides the same, the point becomes symmetrical and loses some of its advantage. Now comes the crucial part, the sharpening stone. Lightly wet it with water. Run it along the hook point in small circular motions, like you're polishing a jewel. 15 to 20 movements. You're polishing the angle and removing microscopic burrs that formed during the sanding process. These burrs are invisible to the naked eye, but prevent perfect penetration. The ideal point is when the tip reflects light like a mirror, and you can barely see the transition between the bevel and the point. It looks like it's all one piece. Quality test. Lightly run the tip over your thumbnail. If it sticks without you applying pressure and scratches gently when you move your finger, it's perfect. If it slips, it's still blunt. It needs another 5 to 10 runs on the rock. These modified hooks last for months in the tackle box. You only need to retouch them if you hit a rock, submerged wood, or heavy structure that bends or breaks the tip. You can turbocharge this process if you want even better results. After sharpening, apply 70% isopropyl alcohol to the tip with a cotton swab. You can buy the bottle for $3 at any pharmacy. This removes any oil residue left from the sharpening stone or your hand. Let it dry for 30 seconds. This ensures that nothing is interfering with penetration, no microscopic layer of grease or oil that could cause the tip to slip. Another detail that old fishermen used to do: keep the modified hooks separately in a small box with a silica gel packet. You know those little packets that come with new shoes, medicine, electronics? Keep them. Moisture can oxidize the tip and reduce the angle's efficiency. If you fish in salt water, apply a very thin layer of mineral oil to the tip after use and before storing. This prevents corrosion but doesn't affect penetration because you clean it with alcohol before using it again. An extra trick Earl showed me. If you want to test if the angle is really good, take a piece of styrofoam from those supermarket meat trays. Try setting the hook without modifying it. Then try with the modified one. The modified hook penetrates all the way to the bottom with half the force. Now you have a hook that covers the main issue: optimized geometry for setting with minimal resistance. The difference in the water is brutal. Do you know why nobody teaches you this in fishing stores? The hook industry makes over $800 million a year in the United States alone selling new hooks. Gamakatsu, Owner, VMC, Mustad, all these giant brands know that a well-maintained and modified hook can last 10 times longer than a standard hook that the average fisherman uses until it goes dull and throws away. They want you to buy new packs every month, every season. If you learn to modify and maintain your hooks, you stop being a repeat customer. Their business model literally depends on planned obsolescence. A $3 hook that you keep sharp and modified for a whole year doesn't pay anyone's salary at the factory in Japan or China. But if you buy 4 new packs a year at $8 each, sometimes more if it's premium line, now there's a fat profit margin. Now it's worth manufacturing, importing, and distributing. That's why no store salesperson will teach you this. It's literally against their economic interests. They prefer to sell you premium hooks with ultra-sharp laser-forged nano-coating technology for $15 or $20 a pack, which do the same thing you can do at home with $15 worth of tools that last for years. It's marketing. They invent technical terms that sound impressive, but in the end, it's just a factory-sharpened hook. And the factory point, even the premium one, doesn't have the optimized angle, because that would require more production time and less standardization. Each hook would have to be adjusted individually. That doesn't scale in a factory. So they sell you the second best and convince you it's the best. When using it in the water, there are a few details that make all the difference. When you're rigging the lure, always check the tip before tying it. Gently run your finger over it. If you feel any burrs, anything that isn't smooth like glass, Quickly smooth it with a sharpening stone. That's why I always carry a sharpening stone in my tackle box. It weighs 50 grams, it doesn't get in the way at all. I spend 20 seconds sharpening it, and it saves the fishing trip. When the fish bites, the hook set needs to be sharp and quick. You don't need to pull the rod out. With this tip angle, a firm wrist movement is enough to set the hook. If you do that violent, tournament-style hook set, you might even bend the hook if it's a lighter, thin wire model. The tip is already penetrating on its own. You just need to make sure it reaches the barb. If you're fishing for bass in heavy cover, like lily pads, grass mats, or wood cover, this modified hook is even more critical. The fish bites and instantly turns towards the bottom. You have half a second, 1 second at most, to set the hook before it gets tangled in the structure and leaves you trapped. With a standard hook, half the time it spits the bait out in that half second because it didn't set properly. You feel the weight, you pull, and nothing. With the modified angle, it's already hooked on the first contact. You feel the bite, and it's already hooked before you even process what happened. It works incredibly well for largemouth bass, smallmouth bass, spotted bass, and any species with a hard jaw like walleye, northern pike, and muskie. It's also excellent for catfish because they swallow more slowly, giving you more reaction time, but the penetration needs to be just right in their mouths, which are like thick rubber. It also works for crappie and bluegill, but you need to use smaller hooks and be more careful in the modification process. Avoid using it on very small hooks, like size 10 or smaller. The steel is too thin, and you can break the tip trying to modify it with too much pressure. It's size 6 or higher, preferably 4-2-1-0-2-0. These can withstand the process and give you the maximum advantage. And remember, if you want the complete knowledge the industry has hidden, it's all in high-level fishing, the water game. There you'll learn to read freshwater and saltwater in practice, identify productive zones in seconds, understand structure and positioning, where the fish really are, never again waste time in dead spots, learn about currents, tides, and water flow. Use the force of the water to your advantage. Positioning and angle of attack. What decides more than the lure? Behavioral patterns, predict fish movements, make real-time decisions, stop trying and start deciding, and the mindset of a high-level fisherman. The difference between amateur and professional. The link is in the first pinned comment. It's the knowledge they tried to bury, now in your hands. Imagine the scene. The next time you go to the lake with your friends, everyone's stopping at Bass Pro Shops beforehand, buying new hooks for $12, $15 a pack. Discussing which brand is better, which has the sharpest point, which lasts longer. You arrive with your modified hooks that cost pennies to adjust. Tools you already have. The first hour you already have 5-6 fish, while the rest are trying to figure out why the fish is biting but not hooking. They feel the bite on the line, set the hook, and nothing. You feel the bite, set the hook, and the fish is already hooked. End of the day, you have 20-25 fish to your name. They have 6-7 in total if they're lucky. They'll ask you what lure you used, what color, what secret casting technique, what knot you're tying, if you're using any special attractor. You decide whether to share or keep this advantage. Because knowledge is power, and that kind of knowledge separates the guy who fishes every weekend and catches half a dozen fish from the guy who dominates the lake. The industry has built a multi-billion-dollar empire by convincing you that you need the most expensive, newest, most technologically advanced equipment to get results. Special carbon hooks, Teflon coating, laser-sharpened triple point, secret Japanese technology. They charge $20, $25 for it. They put it in pretty packaging with graphics and technical terms. They convince you that professional fishermen use it, so you need it too. The truth? A properly modified $1 Eagle Claw hook outperforms any $5 premium hook straight out of the box. I tested it. I took an $18 Gamakatsu hook and a modified generic hook. I set both in the jaw of a dead bass I found on the bank. The modified one penetrated 2 millimeters deeper with the same force. 2 millimeters is the difference between the fish getting hooked and it spitting out the bait. When you understand this, you stop being a hostage to marketing. You stop thinking you need to spend $300 on hooks a year. Fishing isn't about spending more. It's about knowledge that the ancients mastered decades before the industry transformed everything into a product with a profit margin. They fished with simple equipment and caught more fish than 90% of the guys today with $400 rods and boxes full of gadgets. Why? Because they understood the fundamentals. They knew that the hook is the point of contact between you and the fish. Everything else is an accessory. If the hook doesn't bite, it doesn't matter if your rod cost $50 or $500. What changes in your fishing now that you know this? How much money will you save on hooks in the next 5 years? How much more fish will you catch because now you have an advantage that 99% of fishermen don't have? Subscribe to the channel and activate the bell so you don't miss the next secret.